At the dawn of the 4th century, the Roman Empire was at a crossroads. It was no longer the same mighty, expansive empire it had been centuries before. Beset by internal divisions and external threats, the empire found itself fighting for survival. The city of Rome, once the beating heart of the empire, had become a symbol of the empire's stagnation, its power dwindling, its walls crumbling under pressure from barbarian invaders. Emperor Constantine, who rose to power in a series of brutal civil wars, recognized the need for a radical shift in strategy. To preserve the empire's legacy, he understood that the center of Roman power could no longer remain in the increasingly vulnerable West. Instead, Constantine turned his eyes eastward, to a city that had stood at the crossroads of the ancient world for centuries, Byzantium. Byzantium, strategically positioned on the narrow strait of the Bosporus, was a natural fortress. The city, founded by Greek colonists in the 7th century BC, had long been valued for its military and commercial advantages. Controlling the Bosporus meant controlling access to both the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, making Byzantium a vital link between Europe and Asia. Despite its potential, Byzantium had remained relatively small, overshadowed by Rome's greatness. But Constantine saw something far greater in this unassuming city. In 324 AD, after defeating his final rival for control of the Roman Empire, Constantine declared his intention to transform Byzantium into a new capital for the empire. He named it Nova Roma, or New Rome, but the name that would endure through history was Constantinople, the city of Constantine. Constantine's vision for Constantinople was grand. He did not want to merely replicate the glory of Rome, he wanted to surpass it. The city was designed to be a symbol of both Roman imperial power and Constantine's new Christian faith. Constantine, the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity, had seen the potential of this growing religion to unify his empire. Thus, Constantinople would not only be the administrative and military heart of the empire but also its spiritual center. Construction began almost immediately, and the transformation of the city was swift. Constantine summoned architects, engineers, and artisans from all corners of the empire. Massive quantities of marble and other materials flowed into the city, and within a few short years, a new metropolis had emerged where there had once been only a modest settlement. The city's streets were lined with towering buildings, magnificent palaces, and grand public squares, designed to project imperial authority and divine favor. At the heart of Constantinople stood the Great Palace, Constantine's sprawling residence. This vast complex, adorned with mosaics and frescoes, was a testament to the emperor's power. Nearby, the Augustaion, a grand public square, became the city's political and ceremonial center. But the crowning jewel of Constantine's vision was the Church of the Holy Apostles, a magnificent basilica intended to serve as the emperor's mausoleum, cementing his legacy as both a ruler and a Christian. Constantinople's location gave it formidable natural defenses. Surrounded by water on three sides, the Sea of Marmara to the south, the Bosporus to the east, and the Golden Horn to the north, the city was a natural fortress. To protect the city's western approach, Constantine ordered the construction of massive walls, which would later be expanded and reinforced under Emperor Theodosius II to create the famous Theodosian walls. These walls, nearly impenetrable, would make Constantinople one of the most secure cities in the ancient world, standing as a bulwark against invaders for centuries. Yet, despite the city's rapid growth and impressive defenses, Constantine faced significant challenges. The Roman Empire was far from stable, and Constantinople's rise came during a time of intense political and religious turmoil. Although Constantine had embraced Christianity, the Christian faith was still divided by theological disputes. One of the most significant of these was the Arian controversy, which centered on the nature of Christ and the doctrine of the Trinity. Arius, a priest from Alexandria, had argued that Christ was not co-eternal with God the Father, a belief that was fiercely opposed by other Christian leaders. To resolve this dispute, Constantine convened the First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. This council, the first of its kind, brought together bishops from across the Christian world. Ultimately, The council rejected Arianism and affirmed the doctrine of the Trinity, declaring that Christ was of one substance with the Father. This decision marked a crucial moment in the development of Christian orthodoxy, and it solidified Constantine's role as both a political and religious leader. Constantinople's rise continued throughout the 4th century. As the city grew, so too did its influence. It became a major center of trade, attracting merchants from across the Mediterranean, Europe, and Asia. Goods from as far away as India and China could be found in the city's bustling markets. The city's population swelled, and it became a melting pot of cultures and religions, with Greeks, Romans, Syrians, Armenians, and Jews all living and working within its walls. This diversity gave Constantinople a cosmopolitan character that would define it for centuries. By the time of Constantine's death in 337 AD, Constantinople had already begun to eclipse Rome in political and economic importance. While Rome remained the symbolic heart of the empire, it was clear that the future lay in the east. The western provinces, plagued by barbarian invasions and economic decline, were slowly slipping into obscurity, while the eastern provinces, with Constantinople at their center, were growing ever stronger. The 5th century would see Constantinople solidify its status as the new capital of the Roman world. The Western Roman Empire, weakened by repeated invasions and internal decay, finally collapsed in 476 AD, when the last Roman emperor of the West, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the barbarian king Odoacer. With the fall of Rome, Constantinople became the sole center of Roman power, and the Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantine Empire as it would come to be known, entered its golden age. But despite its strength, Constantinople was not immune to the forces of history. The city would face numerous challenges in the centuries to come, from internal political struggles to external threats from barbarian tribes, Persians, and later, Arab and Ottoman armies. Yet through it all, Constantinople would stand as a testament to the resilience of the Roman world, a city that defied the odds time and again. Constantinople was not just a city, it was an idea, a symbol of Roman power, Christian faith, and the enduring legacy of an empire that, though transformed, would continue to shape the course of history for centuries to come. The year was 626 AD, and the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire, was in the throes of a crisis that threatened not only its capital but the very survival of the empire itself. For nearly a century, the empire had been embroiled in a bitter and costly war with the Sasanian Persians, a powerful empire to the east that sought to seize control of Byzantine territory in the Near East. The war had drained the empire's resources, and as it entered its final phase, Constantinople, the jewel of the empire, found itself facing its greatest threat yet. But it wasn't just the Persians who were bearing down on the city. To the north, the Avars, a confederation of nomadic tribes who had migrated into the Balkans, had also set their sights on Constantinople. The Avars had long been a thorn in the side of the Byzantine Empire, launching raids and demanding tribute from the emperors. Now, allied with the Persians, they saw an opportunity to deal a crippling blow to the empire and claim the riches of its capital. The siege of Constantinople in 626 was the culmination of years of warfare and political intrigue. As the Persian army advanced from the east, Emperor Heraclius was in the midst of a desperate campaign to turn the tide of the war. In a bold move, Heraclius had taken the majority of the Byzantine army into the Persian heartland, hoping to strike at the Sasanian Empire's core. This left Constantinople dangerously exposed, with only a small garrison of troops left to defend it. The Avars, seizing the moment, laid siege to the city from the west, while the Persians attacked from the east. It was a pincer movement designed to strangle the city, cutting off its supplies and forcing its surrender. For the people of Constantinople, it was a time of terror and uncertainty. They watched as enemy forces gathered outside the city's walls, their numbers growing with each passing day. The city was effectively surrounded, and many feared that this would be the end of the empire. Constantinople's defense rested on the strength of its walls and the ingenuity of its defenders. The city's famous Theodosian walls, which had been constructed in the 5th century, were some of the most formidable fortifications in the world. These massive stone walls, which stretched for several miles around the city's western perimeter, were nearly impenetrable. The walls consisted of 3 layers: a deep moat, an outer wall, and an inner wall, each designed to slow down and weaken an attacking force. Over the centuries, these walls had withstood numerous assaults, but this time, the threat was far greater. As the Avar army, numbering in the tens of thousands, began to encircle the city, they constructed siege towers and battering rams in preparation for a full-scale assault. The Avars had brought with them engineers skilled in siege warfare, and they believed that with enough time and effort, they could breach the mighty Theodosian walls. At the same time, the Persian army, under the command of General Sharbaraz, established a camp on the eastern side of the Bosporus, blocking the city's access to its crucial supply lines. The Persians did not have the naval power to directly assault the city from the sea, but their presence added to the growing sense of doom among Constantinople's defenders. Inside the city, the mood was grim. Supplies were running low, and the citizens of Constantinople knew that they could not hold out indefinitely. But they also knew that surrender was not an option. Emperor Heraclius had left his young son, Constantine, in charge of the city's defense, along with Patriarch Sergius, the head of the Byzantine Church. Together, they rallied the people to defend their city, invoking both their Roman heritage and their Christian faith as reasons to resist. As the Avars launched their first wave of attacks, they quickly realized that breaching Constantinople's walls would not be as easy as they had hoped. The defenders, though outnumbered, fought with determination and skill. From atop the walls, Byzantine soldiers rained arrows, stones, and boiling oil down on the attackers, causing heavy casualties. The Avars brought forward their siege towers, massive wooden structures designed to allow soldiers to climb over the walls, but the Byzantines responded by setting them on fire with flaming arrows and Greek fire, an incendiary weapon that had been developed by Byzantine engineers. The Avars' attempts to breach the walls were repeatedly repelled, and as the days wore on, frustration began to set in. The Persians, watching from across the Bosporus, had hoped that the Avars would quickly take the city, allowing them to claim victory without having to launch a direct assault. But as the siege dragged on, it became clear that the Byzantines were not going to give up easily. Meanwhile, inside Constantinople, the citizens prayed for deliverance. Patriarch Sergius led daily processions through the streets, carrying religious icons and relics, including the supposed relic of the true cross. The Byzantine defenders believed that divine intervention would save them, and their faith gave them the strength to continue resisting. On the night of August 7, 626, the Avars launched their most ambitious attack yet. Under the cover of darkness, they sent their fleet of small boats across the Golden Horn, hoping to land troops on the northern side of the city and attack the walls from an unexpected direction. At the same time, they launched a full-scale assault on the land walls, using their siege towers and battering rams to try to break through. It was a do-or-die moment for the Avars, and they threw everything they had at the city. But once again, the defenders held firm. The Byzantine navy, though small, managed to intercept and destroy many of the Avar boats before they could land. Those that did manage to reach the shore were met with fierce resistance from the city's defenders. On the landward side, the Avars' siege towers were once again set aflame, and their battering rams failed to breach the walls. The assault ended in disaster for the Avars, with thousands of their soldiers killed or captured. With their forces depleted and their morale shattered, the Avars were forced to lift the siege. The Persians, seeing that the city had not fallen, also abandoned their plans to assault Constantinople. The siege was over, and the city had survived against seemingly impossible odds. The victory at Constantinople was a turning point in the Byzantine-Sasanian War. With the Avars and Persians defeated, Emperor Heraclius was able to continue his campaign in the east, ultimately defeating the Persian Empire and restoring Byzantine control over the Near East. The siege also cemented Constantinople's reputation as an impregnable fortress and a symbol of Byzantine resilience. For centuries to come, the city would stand as a beacon of Roman and Christian civilization, defying enemies from all directions. But the siege of 626 was just one of many trials that Constantinople would face. The city's ultimate fate, as we shall see, would be determined not by its walls or its defenders, but by the shifting tides of history. The year was 732 AD, and the battlefield at Tours in what is now modern-day France would become the site of one of the most decisive and consequential battles in world history. On one side stood the forces of the Frankish kingdom, led by their ruler, Charles Martel, the Hammer. On the other side was the powerful Umayyad Caliphate, a Muslim empire that had expanded rapidly from the Arabian Peninsula into North Africa and Spain. The stakes of this battle were nothing short of the future of Europe itself. For nearly a century, the Umayyad Caliphate had been one of the most formidable military powers in the world. After the death of the Prophet Muhammad in 632 AD, the Islamic conquests had spread with astonishing speed, bringing vast territories under Muslim control. By the early 8th century, the Umayyads had pushed northward through the Iberian Peninsula, establishing their rule over much of Spain and Portugal. But the ambitions of the Umayyads did not stop at the Pyrenees Mountains. Their goal was to continue their conquest into the heart of Europe, spreading Islamic rule across the continent. The Franks, on the other hand, were a Germanic people who had settled in what is now modern-day France and Germany. Led by Charles Martel, the Frankish kingdom was one of the few remaining Christian powers in Western Europe. Martel had risen to prominence not just through his military prowess but also through his political acumen, consolidating power in a divided region and creating a formidable army capable of resisting external threats. The clash between these two civilizations came to a head at the Battle of Tours, or as some historians call it, the Battle of Poitiers. The Umayyad army, led by the governor of Al-Andalus, Abdul Rahman al-Ghafiqi, advanced into Frankish territory with the goal of pillaging the rich lands of Gaul and, ultimately, pushing further into Europe. Al-Ghafiqi's army consisted largely of cavalry, highly mobile horsemen who had proven devastatingly effective in previous battles. They relied on their speed and maneuverability to outflank and overwhelm their enemies, and they were confident that they would do the same to the Franks. Charles Martel, however, understood the tactics of his enemy. Rather than meeting the Umayyads in open field combat, where their cavalry could easily outmaneuver his infantry, Martel chose to take a defensive position. He positioned his troops on a high ridge, forcing the Umayyad cavalry to charge uphill, into the teeth of the Frankish shield wall. Martel's army was composed primarily of infantry, heavily armed and armored men who fought in tight formations, with their large shields locked together to form an impenetrable barrier. As the Umayyad cavalry approached, they launched several probing attacks against the Frankish line, but each time they were repelled. The Franks stood their ground, refusing to break formation. The disciplined Frankish infantry absorbed the initial shock of the cavalry charge, holding firm as the Muslim horsemen crashed into their shields. Despite repeated attacks, the Umayyads were unable to break through the Frankish line. For hours, the battle raged on, with either side gaining a clear advantage. The Franks remained steadfast, while the Umayyads grew increasingly frustrated by their inability to breach the Frankish defenses. Al-Ghafiqi knew that time was not on his side. The longer the battle dragged on, the more his forces would tire, and the more vulnerable they would become to a counterattack. Then, at a critical moment, Charles Martel launched his counteroffensive. Recognizing that the Umayyad forces were beginning to weaken, he ordered a portion of his troops to circle around and attack the Muslim camp. This maneuver created chaos in the Umayyad ranks, as some of their soldiers broke off from the main battle to protect their supplies. In the confusion, word spread that Al-Ghafiqi himself had been killed, though in reality, he was still alive and fighting on the front lines. This rumor, however, had a devastating effect on the morale of the Umayyad troops. Without clear leadership and fearing that their leader had fallen, many of the Muslim soldiers began to retreat. As they fled the battlefield, the Frankish forces pressed their advantage, cutting down the retreating soldiers and securing a decisive victory. The Battle of Tours was not just a military victory for Charles Martel, it was a turning point in the history of Europe. While some historians debate the significance of the battle, many agree that it halted the northward advance of the Umayyad Caliphate and preserved the Christian kingdoms of Europe from Islamic conquest. Martel's victory at Tours earned him the title Savior of Christendom in later centuries, and his reputation as a military genius was cemented. In the aftermath of the battle, Martel continued to strengthen his hold over the Frankish kingdom, laying the foundations for the Carolingian dynasty, which would come to dominate Western Europe in the centuries to come. His grandson, Charlemagne, would go on to become one of the most powerful and influential rulers in European history, but it was Charles Martel's victory at Tours that ensured the survival of the Frankish kingdom and the Christian faith in Europe. As for the Umayyads, the defeat at Tours marked the beginning of the end of their expansion into Europe. Though they would continue to rule over Al-Andalus for centuries, their ambitions of conquering the rest of the continent were thwarted. The Battle of Tours was a turning point, not just for the Franks and the Umayyads, but for the entire course of European history. In the year 1453, the city of Constantinople stood as the last bastion of the Byzantine Empire, a remnant of the once great Roman civilization. This strategic city, positioned at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, had been the center of trade, culture, and politics for over 1,000 years. However, the Byzantine Empire was in a state of decline, weakened by internal strife, territorial losses, and the relentless advance of the Ottoman Turks, who sought to expand their empire and bring the city under their control. The Ottomans, under the leadership of Sultan Mehmed II, often referred to as Mehmed the Conqueror, were determined to seize Constantinople. Mehmed had ascended to the throne at a young age, and from the outset, he envisioned an empire that spanned continents. He had witnessed the Ottoman Empire's previous victories, including the conquest of territories in the Balkans and the fall of key Byzantine cities, and he believed that capturing Constantinople would solidify his legacy and mark the Ottomans as the dominant power in the region. To accomplish this monumental task, Mehmed assembled a vast army, estimated to be around 80,000 strong, including elite Janissary infantry and skilled archers. The Ottoman forces were well trained, highly motivated, and equipped with the latest military technology, including massive cannons that would play a crucial role in the siege. These cannons were capable of hurling large stones against the formidable walls of Constantinople, which had stood for centuries against numerous sieges. In contrast, the Byzantine defenders, led by Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos, numbered only around 7,000 soldiers, a fraction of the Ottoman force. The Byzantine walls, though impressive, were aging and had been weakened by years of neglect and previous attacks. Constantine understood the dire situation facing his city. The fall of Constantinople would not only mean the end of the Byzantine Empire but also a significant shift in the balance of power in the region, potentially threatening the Christian world. The siege began on April 6, 1453, and the Ottomans immediately set to work, bombarding the city with their massive cannons. The sound of cannon fire echoed through the streets of Constantinople, shaking the very foundations of its ancient buildings. The cannons, designed by the Hungarian engineer Orban, were a marvel of military engineering. They could fire stone balls weighing up to 600 pounds, capable of breaching the city's legendary walls. As the bombardment continued, the Byzantine defenders worked tirelessly to repair the damage and fortify their defenses. They poured molten lead and hot sand into the breaches created by the cannon fire, determined to hold the line against the overwhelming Ottoman assault. The city was alive with activity as citizens and soldiers alike prepared for the onslaught. Churches rang their bells, calling the faithful to pray for divine intervention, while the streets filled with a sense of impending doom. On May 22, 1453, after weeks of relentless siege, the Ottomans launched their final assault. The Byzantine defenders, weary and outnumbered, braced themselves for the inevitable onslaught. As the sun rose over the horizon, casting an eerie light over the battlefield, the Ottomans advanced, determined to break through the last remaining defenses. The clash of steel and the cries of battle filled the air as the two forces collided. The Ottomans breached the walls, and chaos erupted within the city. The defenders fought valiantly, but the sheer numbers and determination of the Ottoman forces overwhelmed them. The streets of Constantinople ran red with blood as the Ottomans surged forward, capturing key positions and pushing deeper into the city. The Byzantine soldiers, fighting for their homeland and their faith, displayed extraordinary bravery, but the tide of battle was turning inexorably against them. As the fighting intensified, Emperor Constantine XI refused to abandon his post. Dressed in his battle armor, he fought alongside his men, urging them to hold their ground. In a poignant moment, he reportedly declared, "I have no hope left. I will die with my city." His unwavering determination inspired his soldiers, but the odds were insurmountable. In the chaos of battle, the Ottomans finally breached the inner defenses of the city. As they poured through the gates, Mem II ordered his troops to spare the lives of the citizens, but chaos reigned. The streets were filled with pillage and destruction as soldiers looted homes and businesses. The Hagia Sophia, once a symbol of Christian faith, would soon be transformed into a mosque, marking the end of an era. With the fall of Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire ceased to exist, marking the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning of a new era, the Renaissance. The Ottomans emerged as the dominant power in the region, and their empire would continue to expand for centuries. Mem II's victory was celebrated not just as a military triumph, but as a significant turning point in history. The fall of Constantinople had far-reaching consequences that reshaped the world. It paved the way for Ottoman dominance in southeastern Europe and the Mediterranean, shifting the balance of power in favor of the Muslim world. The event also prompted a wave of migration of scholars and artists from the Byzantine Empire to Western Europe, helping to ignite the flame of the Renaissance. In the aftermath of the conquest, Mem II implemented policies that sought to integrate various cultures and religions within his empire. He allowed Christians and Jews to maintain their faiths and even encouraged the resettlement of displaced populations from the surrounding areas. This multicultural approach would shape the Ottoman Empire's identity for centuries to come, creating a rich tapestry of cultures that thrived under its rule. As the camera pans out, the once proud city of Constantinople is shown under Ottoman rule, now called Istanbul. The sun sets on a new era, casting a golden hue over the city as the call to prayer echoes across the skyline. The transformation of Constantinople serves as a reminder of the relentless march of history, where empires rise and fall, leaving their indelible marks on the world. The American Revolution, a pivotal conflict in the late 18th century, arose from the growing discontent among the 13 American colonies under British rule. Tensions had been mounting for years, fueled by a series of punitive taxes and restrictive laws imposed by the British Parliament. The colonists, who had once seen themselves as loyal subjects of the Crown, began to question their relationship with Britain, culminating in a desire for independence and self-governance. The roots of the Revolution can be traced back to events such as the Boston Tea Party in 1773, where colonists protested against the Tea Act, which granted the British East India Company a monopoly on tea sales in the colonies. This act was perceived as another example of taxation without representation, a slogan that would resonate throughout the Revolutionary period. Dressed as Native Americans, a group of patriots boarded British ships and dumped an entire shipment of tea into the harbor, signaling a bold act of defiance against British authority. As discontent grew, the British responded with increasing military presence, further inflaming tensions. In April 1775, the situation escalated when British troops marched to Lexington and Concord to confiscate colonial arms. The clash that ensued, known as the "Shot Heard Round the World," marked the beginning of armed conflict between the colonies and Great Britain. The skirmish ignited the flame of revolution, uniting the colonies in their struggle for freedom. In the following months, the Continental Congress convened, bringing together leaders from the colonies to discuss their grievances and the path forward. Figures such as George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and John Adams emerged as key leaders in the push for independence. Washington was appointed as the commander of the Continental Army, tasked with leading the colonies against the formidable British military. The early years of the Revolution were fraught with challenges. The Continental Army was largely composed of inexperienced soldiers, poorly equipped and poorly trained compared to the seasoned British troops. However, the colonists were driven by a fierce desire for freedom and self-determination. They employed guerrilla tactics, ambushing British supply lines and using their knowledge of the terrain to their advantage. One of the turning points in the Revolution came in 1777 with the Battle of Saratoga, a decisive American victory that convinced France to join the war on the side of the colonists. The French had been watching the conflict closely, and the prospect of weakening their longtime rival, Britain, made the American cause appealing. The alliance with France provided the Continental Army with much-needed supplies, troops, and naval support. As the war dragged on, the British strategy shifted towards capturing major cities and disrupting colonial supply lines. The Siege of Yorktown in 1781 became the final major battle of the Revolution. The British, led by General Cornwallis, found themselves surrounded by American and French forces, with nowhere to retreat. The combined might of the colonial and French armies forced Cornwallis to surrender, marking a decisive victory for the revolutionaries. The victory at Yorktown effectively ended major hostilities, and peace negotiations began soon after. In 1783, the Treaty of Paris was signed, officially recognizing the independence of the United States. The Revolution had not only secured independence but also established the United States as a new nation founded on principles of liberty, equality, and self-governance. The American Revolution had far-reaching implications, inspiring other nations and movements across the globe. The ideals of freedom and democracy articulated by leaders like Thomas Jefferson would resonate in the hearts of revolutionaries in France, Latin America, and beyond. The Revolution also set the stage for the creation of a new government, leading to the drafting of the U.S. Constitution and the establishment of a democratic republic. As the camera pulls back from the signing of the Treaty of Paris, we see the diverse and vibrant population of the new nation, filled with hope and aspirations for the future. The revolution may have been won, but the struggle for equality and civil rights would continue, shaping the United States for generations to come. The Industrial Revolution, spanning from the late 18th century to the mid-19th century, marked a profound transformation in human society. Originating in Great Britain, it would soon spread across Europe and North America, altering economies, societies, and even the way people lived and worked. This period was characterized by a shift from agrarian economies based on manual labor to industrialized systems that relied on mechanization and mass production. At its core, the Industrial Revolution was driven by a series of innovations and technological advancements that changed the fabric of daily life. The invention of the steam engine, developed by figures like James Watt, revolutionized transportation and manufacturing. Steam power replaced water and wind as the primary sources of energy, enabling factories to be built anywhere, not just along rivers. This new power source spurred the growth of industries such as textiles, iron, and coal mining, creating unprecedented economic opportunities and challenges. The textile industry was among the first to undergo significant change. Prior to the revolution, cloth was produced through hand spinning and weaving, a time-consuming and labor-intensive process. The introduction of machinery, such as the spinning jenny and the power loom, allowed for the rapid production of fabric on a scale previously unimaginable. Factories emerged in cities like Manchester, where workers, including many women and children, toiled long hours for meager wages in often perilous conditions. As factories sprang up, they attracted an influx of rural workers seeking employment. This migration from the countryside to urban areas led to explosive population growth in cities, resulting in overcrowded living conditions. The working class faced numerous hardships: long hours, low pay, and unsafe environments. The air was thick with pollution, and the streets were filled with the cries of the impoverished seeking work. Labor movements began to emerge, as workers sought to improve their conditions and fight for their rights. The Industrial Revolution also had profound social implications. The rise of the factory system altered traditional family structures and social hierarchies. Many families found their dynamics shifting as women and children entered the workforce, contributing to household income. While this newfound economic participation provided some families with opportunities, it also raised concerns about child labor and the exploitation of vulnerable populations. In response to these issues, reform movements began to gain traction. Social reformers like Charles Dickens highlighted the struggles of the working class in their literature, shedding light on the harsh realities of industrial life. Public awareness of the plight of workers led to legislative changes, such as the Factory Acts in Britain, which sought to limit working hours and improve conditions for children and women. As industrialization continued, innovations in transportation transformed the movement of goods and people. The development of railways and steamships made it possible to transport raw materials and finished products more efficiently than ever before. The world shrank as distances became less daunting, connecting markets and facilitating trade. The impact of these advancements extended beyond the industrialized nations, influencing economies worldwide and setting the stage for global trade networks. However, the Industrial Revolution was not without its critics. The rapid pace of change and the growing disparity between the wealthy industrialists and the impoverished laborers led to tensions and conflicts. Marxist theories emerged in response to the inequities of capitalism, advocating for workers' rights and the redistribution of wealth. This ideological battle would shape political discourse for generations, influencing revolutions and reform movements around the globe. By the mid-19th century, the effects of the Industrial Revolution were palpable. The landscape of society had transformed dramatically, laying the foundation for the modern world. As cities grew and economies expanded, new social classes emerged: the bourgeoisie, or middle class, who reaped the benefits of industrialization, and the proletariat, the working class, who often struggled to make ends meet. As the scene fades, the camera captures workers leaving the factories, their faces weary yet resolute. The Industrial Revolution had birthed a new era, marked by progress and promise, but also by struggle and strife. The challenges of industrialization would resonate for generations, shaping the contours of modern society and paving the way for future advancements. The Civil Rights Movement in the United States, spanning the 1950s and 1960s, was a pivotal struggle for African Americans seeking equality and justice in a society deeply entrenched in racial discrimination and segregation. This movement aimed to dismantle the systemic barriers that denied Black Americans their civil rights, and it drew upon a rich history of resistance and resilience. The movement gained momentum in the wake of World War II, when African American soldiers returned home from fighting for freedom abroad only to face discrimination and segregation in their own country. The hypocrisy of a nation that espoused liberty and justice while denying those same rights to its Black citizens became increasingly untenable. Organizations like the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, worked tirelessly to challenge discriminatory laws and practices through legal means. A key moment that ignited the movement was the arrest of Rosa Parks in Montgomery, Alabama, in December 1955. Parks, a civil rights activist, refused to give up her seat to a white passenger on a segregated bus. Her courageous act of defiance sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, a year-long protest against the city's segregated bus system. Under the leadership of a young Martin Luther King Jr., the boycott united the Black community and showcased the power of nonviolent resistance. King's philosophy of nonviolence, inspired by Mahatma Gandhi, became the cornerstone of the civil rights movement. He preached love and understanding in the face of hatred and violence, advocating for peaceful protests, marches, and sit-ins. King's leadership brought national attention to the plight of African Americans, and his eloquent speeches resonated with people across the country. His famous "I Have a Dream" speech during the 1963 March on Washington became a defining moment of the movement, articulating the hope for a future free from racial injustice. As the movement gained traction, it faced significant resistance. Southern states employed brutal tactics to maintain the status quo, and protests were met with violent reprisals from law enforcement. The 1963 Birmingham campaign highlighted the struggle against segregation, as peaceful demonstrators were met with fire hoses and police dogs. Images of the brutality shocked the nation and garnered widespread sympathy for the civil rights cause. The movement also saw the emergence of grassroots organizations, such as the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, which engaged younger activists in direct action. Sit-ins at segregated lunch counters and freedom rides on interstate buses drew attention to the injustices faced by African Americans in everyday life. These acts of civil disobedience demonstrated a commitment to change and inspired others to join the cause. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was signed into law, outlawing discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This landmark legislation was a significant victory for the movement, but the struggle was far from over. activists continued to fight for voting rights, leading to the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which aimed to eliminate barriers that prevented African Americans from exercising their right to vote. The movement also had profound implications beyond the United States. It inspired anti-colonial movements in Africa, the struggle for indigenous rights, and various other social justice initiatives worldwide. The principles of equality and justice espoused by civil rights leaders resonated with oppressed peoples around the globe, fostering a sense of solidarity in the fight against oppression. As the camera captures a diverse group of people marching together, chanting for justice and equality, it reflects the enduring spirit of the civil rights movement. The movement's legacy continues to influence contemporary struggles for social justice, reminding us of the power of collective action and the ongoing fight for equality. The fall of the Berlin Wall on November 9, 1989, marked a watershed moment in world history, symbolizing the end of the Cold War and the division of Europe. For nearly 3 decades, the wall had stood as a stark barrier, separating East and West Berlin and embodying the ideological struggle between communism and democracy. Its collapse not only altered the landscape of Germany but also signaled a significant shift in global politics. The Berlin Wall was erected in 1961, a response to the mass exodus of East Germans fleeing to the West in search of freedom and opportunity. The East German government, backed by the Soviet Union, constructed the wall overnight, sealing off the borders and effectively imprisoning its citizens. Families were torn apart, and the wall became a powerful symbol of repression, as countless individuals risked their lives attempting to escape to the West. Throughout the 1980s, a growing wave of dissent and unrest began to challenge the status quo in Eastern Europe. Economic stagnation, political repression, and a desire for greater freedoms fueled protests and demonstrations. In East Germany, the peaceful protests of citizens demanding reforms intensified, culminating in a series of demonstrations in 1989. The atmosphere was charged with hope and a yearning for change, as people took to the streets in massive numbers. Amidst the turmoil, Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev introduced reforms in the Soviet Union, promoting policies of glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring. Gorbachev's leadership encouraged the idea that change was possible, and it resonated with citizens across Eastern Europe. As more people began to question the oppressive regimes governing their lives, the momentum for reform grew unstoppable. On the night of November 9, 1989, a miscommunication regarding new travel regulations triggered the wall's unexpected opening. Thousands of East Berliners rushed to the wall, eager to cross into West Berlin. The joyous scenes that followed were unimaginable just days before, as families and friends reunited after years of separation. People from both sides climbed onto the wall, celebrating a newfound freedom that had long been denied to them. As the camera captures the euphoric crowds chipping away at the wall, the scene transforms into a powerful visual metaphor for the collapse of oppressive systems. The wall's destruction represented not only the end of a divided Germany, but also the unraveling of the Iron Curtain that had divided Europe since the end of World War II. The fall of the Berlin Wall ignited a wave of democratic movements across Eastern Europe, leading to the collapse of communist regimes in countries such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Hungary. The reunification of Germany followed shortly after, with East and West Berlin coming together to form a single nation once more. The Berlin Wall's fall not only altered the physical landscape but also reshaped the geopolitical landscape of the world. It marked the beginning of a new era characterized by increased cooperation and integration in Europe, as former Eastern Bloc countries sought to join the European Union and NATO. As the scene fades, the camera captures a vibrant, united Berlin, filled with celebration and hope. The fall of the Berlin Wall was a triumph of the human spirit, a testament to the resilience of those who dared to dream of a better future. The echoes of that moment continue to resonate today, reminding us of the importance of freedom, unity, and the enduring pursuit of justice. The rise of the Internet from the 1990s to the present day has fundamentally transformed the way we communicate, work, and interact with the world. Initially developed as a military project in the 1960s, the Internet gained traction as a platform for academic and research institutions in the 1980s. However, It wasn't until the advent of the World Wide Web in the early 1990s that the Internet began to enter the mainstream consciousness. The introduction of web browsers, such as Mosaic and Netscape, revolutionized the way people accessed information. For the first time, users could navigate the vast expanse of the Internet through a user-friendly interface. This accessibility sparked an explosion of online content, as individuals and organizations began creating websites to share knowledge, ideas, and products. The Internet became a digital marketplace, connecting consumers and businesses like never before. As the Internet grew, so too did the concept of connectivity. The late 1990s saw the emergence of social media platforms, allowing individuals to connect with friends and family across the globe. Websites like Friendster and MySpace paved the way for what would become an essential aspect of modern life: social networking. These platforms transformed how people interacted, sharing everything from personal updates to political opinions. The Internet also changed the landscape of commerce, leading to the rise of e-commerce giants such as Amazon and eBay. Online shopping became a viable alternative to traditional retail, as consumers enjoyed the convenience of browsing and purchasing products from the comfort of their homes. The impact of this shift was profound, disrupting established business models and reshaping the retail industry. In addition to commerce, the Internet became a powerful tool for activism and social change. Grassroots movements harnessed the power of online platforms to raise awareness about issues ranging from climate change to social justice. The Arab Spring, for example, illustrated the role of social media in organizing protests and mobilizing support for democratic reforms in the Middle East. The Internet empowered individuals to amplify their voices and advocate for change in ways that were previously unimaginable. However, the rapid rise of the Internet also brought challenges. Issues related to privacy, security, and misinformation emerged as critical concerns in the digital age. Cybersecurity threats became more sophisticated, with hackers targeting individuals and organizations alike. The spread of misinformation and fake news on social media platforms raised questions about the integrity of information and its implications for democracy. As the Internet continued to evolve, advancements in technology propelled society into the era of smartphones and mobile connectivity. The introduction of the iPhone in 2007 revolutionized how people interacted with technology. With the world at their fingertips, individuals became increasingly reliant on mobile devices for communication, entertainment, and access to information. Apps became an integral part of daily life, shaping everything from how we shop to how we consume news. The rise of artificial intelligence and machine learning has further transformed the digital landscape, enabling personalized experiences and automated services. From virtual assistants like Siri and Alexa to recommendation algorithms on streaming platforms, AI has become embedded in our lives, influencing the choices we make and the content we consume. As we navigate this interconnected world, the Internet continues to shape our societies, economies, and cultures. It has created a global community, blurring the lines between borders and facilitating cross-cultural exchange. The impact of the Internet is undeniable, and its potential for both positive change and unforeseen consequences remains a topic of discussion. As the scene fades, the camera captures individuals of all ages engaging with technology, illustrating the profound influence of the Internet on contemporary life. The journey from a military project to a global phenomenon is a testament to human ingenuity and innovation, and its legacy will continue to unfold in the years to come. The COVID-19 pandemic, which emerged in late 2019, unleashed a global crisis unlike any seen in recent history. What began as a localized outbreak in Wuhan, China, rapidly escalated into a worldwide pandemic, leading to millions of infections and deaths across the globe. The profound impact of the virus reshaped societies, economies, and the very fabric of daily life. As the virus spread, governments implemented unprecedented measures to contain its transmission. Lockdowns, social distancing, and mask mandates became the norm, fundamentally altering how people interacted with one another. Public spaces that once bustled with activity fell silent as individuals sheltered in place, grappling with the uncertainty of an invisible enemy. The pandemic highlighted the interconnectedness of our world, as borders were closed and travel restrictions imposed in an effort to curb the spread of the virus. The pandemic also exposed deep-seated inequalities within societies. Vulnerable populations, including low-income workers and marginalized communities, faced disproportionate risks, highlighting systemic disparities in healthcare access and social support. The crisis underscored the importance of solidarity and community, as individuals rallied together to support one another through acts of kindness and mutual aid. Healthcare systems around the world were stretched to their limits, grappling with surges in cases and the urgent need for medical supplies and personnel. Frontline workers, including doctors, nurses, and essential staff, became heroes in the fight against the virus, often facing overwhelming challenges and emotional tolls as they cared for patients in distress. The sacrifices made by these individuals underscored the importance of investing in public health infrastructure and ensuring that healthcare systems are equipped to handle future crises. As the pandemic progressed, scientists and researchers worked tirelessly to develop vaccines, leading to unprecedented advancements in vaccine technology. The rollout of vaccines represented a beacon of hope amid the chaos, offering the promise of protection and a return to normalcy. Vaccination campaigns mobilized communities, as public health officials sought to educate and encourage individuals to participate in the effort to curb the spread of the virus. The pandemic also accelerated trends that were already underway, including the digitization of work and education. Remote work and online learning became the norm, reshaping how people engaged with their jobs and studies. The transition to digital platforms posed both challenges and opportunities, as individuals adapted to new ways of connecting, collaborating, and learning. The reliance on technology during the pandemic has sparked discussions about the future of work and the role of virtual environments in our lives. As society began to emerge from the grips of the pandemic, questions about the long-term implications of COVID-19 remained. The virus has not only affected physical health but has also taken a toll on mental health, leading to increased levels of anxiety, depression, and social isolation. The need for mental health support and resources became more pronounced, as individuals sought ways to cope with the emotional aftermath of the pandemic. As the scene transitions, the camera captures people slowly returning to public spaces, masked yet hopeful. The pandemic served as a reminder of our shared humanity and the resilience of communities in the face of adversity. While the road to recovery is ongoing, the lessons learned during this crisis will shape our future responses to global challenges, emphasizing the importance of preparedness, solidarity, and compassion. The Industrial Revolution, which began in the late 18th century, marked a profound transformation in the way goods were produced and societies were structured. Originating in Great Britain, this period witnessed a shift from agrarian economies to industrialized societies, setting the stage for modern capitalism and reshaping daily life in unprecedented ways. In the early phases of the Industrial Revolution, innovations in technology and machinery played a critical role in increasing production efficiency. The invention of the steam engine by James Watt in the late 1700s revolutionized transportation and manufacturing, allowing for the mechanization of various processes. Factories began to spring up across the countryside, symbolizing progress and economic opportunity, but also marking the beginning of a new era of labor exploitation. Workers flocked to these factories in search of better wages and living conditions, drawn by the promise of employment in a rapidly changing world. However, the reality was often grim. Men, women, and even children toiled long hours under hazardous conditions, with little regard for their safety or well-being. The factories became synonymous with harsh labor, as workers faced grueling shifts, minimal pay, and an utter lack of rights or protections. As urban centers expanded, so too did the challenges associated with rapid industrialization. Cities became overcrowded, leading to poor living conditions, inadequate sanitation, and the spread of diseases. The stark contrast between the wealth generated by industrialists and the poverty faced by laborers fueled social unrest. Movements advocating for workers' rights began to emerge, demanding better wages, reasonable working hours, and improved conditions. The Industrial Revolution also brought about significant advancements in transportation and communication. The construction of railroads connected distant regions, facilitating the movement of goods and people. The telegraph revolutionized communication, allowing messages to be transmitted across great distances in mere moments. These innovations not only transformed the economy but also fostered a sense of interconnectedness among communities. In the wake of the revolution, the world witnessed the rise of new social classes. The bourgeoisie, or middle class, emerged as a powerful economic force, while the working class became increasingly organized in their pursuit of rights. Labor unions formed, advocating for the rights of workers and pushing for legislative changes to improve working conditions. Strikes and protests became common as workers demanded fair treatment, marking the beginning of a labor movement that would shape the course of history. Despite the challenges, the Industrial Revolution also paved the way for remarkable achievements in science, technology, and culture. Innovations in medicine improved public health, while advances in engineering enabled the construction of architectural marvels. The arts flourished, reflecting the complexities of a rapidly changing society. However, this period also raised questions about the impact of industrialization on the environment, as pollution and resource depletion began to take their toll. As the scene unfolds, the camera shifts to portray the contrasting lives of the wealthy industrialists and the impoverished workers. It highlights the struggles faced by laborers as they fought for justice and equality in a system that often marginalized their contributions. The Industrial Revolution was a double-edged sword. It spurred economic growth and innovation, while also exposing the darker side of unchecked capitalism. In the years that followed, the legacies of the Industrial Revolution continued to shape societies around the globe. The lessons learned from this transformative period sparked movements advocating for social justice, labor rights, and environmental sustainability. The struggle for a fair and equitable society remains ongoing, a testament to the resilience of those who dare to challenge the status quo. As the scene fades, the camera captures the remnants of old factories juxtaposed with modern technology, symbolizing the enduring impact of the Industrial Revolution on contemporary life. This period serves as a reminder of the power of innovation, the importance of workers' rights, and the ongoing quest for social change. The Civil Rights Movement in the United States, which spanned the 1950s and 1960s, was a monumental struggle for racial equality and justice. Fueled by the injustices faced by African Americans, this movement aimed to dismantle systemic racism and achieve full civil rights for all citizens, regardless of race. The movement was ignited by a series of pivotal events, including the Supreme Court's landmark decision in Brown v. Board of Education in 1954, which declared that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. This ruling provided a legal foundation for challenging segregation laws and inspired activists to push for broader civil rights reforms. As the movement gained momentum, figures such as Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X emerged as powerful voices advocating for change. Rosa Parks' refusal to give up her seat on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama, sparked the Montgomery bus boycott, a pivotal moment in the fight against segregation. The boycott lasted for over a year, demonstrating the power of collective action and nonviolent resistance. Martin Luther King Jr. became a central figure in the movement, advocating for peaceful protests and civil disobedience as a means to achieve racial equality. His famous, "I Have a Dream" speech during the 1963 March on Washington galvanized support for the movement and articulated a vision of a society free from discrimination and injustice. King's message of hope and unity resonated with people across the nation, inspiring countless individuals to join the cause. The movement faced fierce opposition from those who sought to maintain the status quo. Activists were met with violence, intimidation, and arrests as they organized protests and sit-ins to challenge segregation. The brutal tactics used against peaceful demonstrators, particularly during events like the Selma to Montgomery marches, garnered national attention and outrage. The images of peaceful protesters facing police brutality ignited a sense of urgency, leading to increased support for civil rights legislation. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act was passed, outlawing discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. This historic legislation marked a significant victory for the movement, but the fight for equality was far from over. Activists continued to advocate for voting rights, fair housing, and economic justice, pushing back against the remnants of systemic racism that persisted in American society. As the scene progresses, the camera captures the resilience of those who participated in the movement. Their determination and courage in the face of adversity serve as a testament to the human spirit and the pursuit of justice. The civil rights movement was not merely a struggle for legal rights, it was a fight for dignity, respect, and the recognition of humanity. The movement's legacy continues to resonate today, influencing contemporary social justice movements and inspiring generations to fight against oppression. The achievements of the civil rights movement serve as a reminder of the power of grassroots activism, solidarity, and the importance of standing up for what is right. As the scene fades, the camera shifts to show diverse groups of people standing together in solidarity, symbolizing the ongoing struggle for equality and justice. The civil rights movement laid the groundwork for a more inclusive society, challenging individuals to confront the legacies of racism and work toward a future where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. The fall of apartheid in South Africa represents a pivotal moment in the fight against racial oppression and the struggle for human rights. Apartheid, a system of institutionalized racial segregation and discrimination, was enforced by the National Party government from 1948 until the early 1990s, creating a deeply divided society where black South Africans were denied basic rights and freedoms. The resistance against apartheid was met with brutal repression, as the government sought to silence dissent and maintain control. Activists such as Nelson Mandela emerged as key figures in the struggle, leading the African National Congress, ANC, in its fight against the apartheid regime. Mandela's imprisonment in 1962 became a symbol of the struggle for justice, as calls for his release echoed worldwide. The 1980s saw a surge in anti-apartheid activism, both within South Africa and internationally. Mass protests, strikes, and acts of civil disobedience became common as black South Africans demanded an end to apartheid. The global community rallied behind the cause, imposing economic sanctions and boycotts against the apartheid regime, isolating South Africa diplomatically and economically. In 1990, after years of pressure and negotiation, Nelson Mandela was released from prison, marking a turning point in the struggle for freedom. His release ignited hope among millions, as he emerged not only as a political leader but also as a symbol of resilience and reconciliation. Mandela's vision for a democratic South Africa, built on the principles of equality and justice, inspired people across the globe. Negotiations between the ANC and the apartheid government began, culminating in the historic 1994 elections, where South Africa held its first multiracial democratic elections. The election of Nelson Mandela as the country's first black president signified the end of apartheid and a new era of hope for millions of South Africans. The celebration that erupted following the election was not merely a moment of triumph, but a testament to the resilience of a people who had endured decades of oppression. As the scene unfolds, the camera captures the joy and unity of South Africans from all backgrounds celebrating the dawn of a new era. The fall of apartheid marked a profound transformation, not only within South Africa but also in the global struggle for human rights. The journey toward reconciliation, however, was fraught with challenges as the nation grappled with the legacies of apartheid. Mandela's leadership emphasized forgiveness and reconciliation, promoting a vision of a united South Africa where all citizens could live in harmony. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, established to address the atrocities of the apartheid era, sought to uncover the truth behind the violence and promote healing within communities. This groundbreaking approach acknowledged the pain of the past while fostering a spirit of reconciliation. Despite the progress made, South Africa continues to confront the complexities of its past, grappling with issues of inequality, poverty, and social injustice. The fall of apartheid serves as a powerful reminder of the ongoing struggle for human rights and the importance of standing up against oppression in all its forms. The resilience of the South African people in their quest for justice and equality inspires movements around the world, encouraging individuals to fight for a more just and equitable society. As the scene fades, the camera captures the diverse tapestry of South Africa today, a nation still navigating its complex history but united in its commitment to building a brighter future. The legacy of the anti-apartheid movement is not merely a chapter in history, it is a continuing story of hope, resilience, and the pursuit of justice. The space race, a competition between the United States and the Soviet Union, marked a defining era in the Cold War, characterized by technological advancements and the exploration of outer space. Beginning in 1957 with the launch of Sputnik, the first artificial satellite, the space race ignited a fervor for scientific innovation and national pride. The launch of Sputnik not only showcased the Soviet Union's technological prowess but also sparked fears in the United States regarding the potential military applications of space technology. In response, the U.S. government accelerated its own space program, leading to the establishment of NASA in 1958. The space race was not merely about reaching outer space. It was a battle for ideological supremacy, with each nation striving to demonstrate the superiority of its political system. Throughout the 1960s, both nations achieved significant milestones. The Soviet Union continued to lead with successful missions, including the first human in space, Yuri Gagarin, in 1961. Gagarin's journey was celebrated worldwide, cementing the Soviet Union's position as a leader in space exploration. However, the United States was determined to catch up and, ultimately, to surpass its rival. The Apollo program emerged as a symbol of American ambition, culminating in the historic Apollo 11 mission. On July 20, 1969, astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to set foot on the lunar surface, declaring, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." The achievement resonated across the globe, capturing the imagination of millions and serving as a testament to human ingenuity and perseverance. The space race not only revolutionized technology but also sparked interest in science and engineering, inspiring generations to pursue careers in these fields. The competition fostered collaboration among scientists, engineers, and educators, leading to advancements in various sectors, including telecommunications, medicine, and environmental science. The race to the moon was not merely about national pride, it was a collective human endeavor that transcended borders. As the scene unfolds, the camera captures the excitement of the Apollo 11 mission, highlighting the teamwork and dedication of those involved. The public's fascination with space exploration led to an era of unprecedented scientific discovery, as humans ventured beyond the confines of Earth. The space race ignited a passion for exploration and innovation, pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible. In the years following the Apollo missions, the focus of space exploration shifted toward international collaboration. The establishment of the International Space Station, ISS, marked a new era in which nations worked together to advance scientific knowledge and share resources. The spirit of cooperation became essential in addressing the challenges posed by space exploration, highlighting the importance of unity in the face of global challenges. The space race also raised critical questions about the ethical implications of technological advancement and the responsibilities of nations in their pursuit of knowledge. As we continue to explore the cosmos, the legacies of the space race remind us of the potential for both competition and collaboration in shaping our future. The pursuit of knowledge and exploration has the power to unite humanity, inspiring us to work together for the betterment of all. As the scene fades, the camera lingers on the stars, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the boundless potential that lies ahead. The journey of exploration is far from over, and the lessons learned during the space race continue to guide our aspirations for the future. The digital revolution, which began in the late 20th century and continues to unfold today, has transformed the way we communicate, work, and live. The advent of the Internet, personal computers, and mobile devices has reshaped society, breaking down barriers and connecting people across the globe. The 1990s marked the beginning of the Internet age, with the World Wide Web becoming accessible to the public. This technological breakthrough revolutionized communication, enabling individuals to connect and share information instantaneously. The digital landscape evolved rapidly, giving rise to e-commerce, social media, and online communities that transcended geographical boundaries. As technology advanced, so too did the impact of digital innovation on various sectors. Industries underwent significant transformations, with businesses leveraging technology to streamline operations and enhance productivity. The rise of the gig economy and remote work exemplified the shifting nature of employment, offering new opportunities for individuals to pursue flexible careers. The digital revolution also raised important questions about privacy, security, and the ethical implications of technology. As personal data became increasingly valuable, concerns about surveillance and data protection emerged, prompting discussions about the responsibility of tech companies and governments to safeguard individual rights. Social media platforms emerged as powerful tools for communication and activism, allowing individuals to mobilize for social change and raise awareness about critical issues. Movements like #MeToo and Black Lives Matter gained traction through digital platforms, highlighting the potential for technology to amplify marginalized voices and foster collective action. As the scene unfolds, the camera captures the diversity of voices and perspectives in the digital landscape. The digital revolution has democratized information, empowering individuals to share their stories and engage in meaningful dialogue. However, it has also highlighted the challenges of misinformation and the need for critical thinking in an era of overwhelming information. The evolution of technology continues to shape our daily lives, influencing how we interact, learn, and engage with the world. As we navigate the complexities of the digital age, the lessons learned from previous revolutions remind us of the importance of adaptability, resilience, and a commitment to ethical practices. As the scene fades, the camera shifts to portray the future of technology, one filled with possibilities and challenges. The digital revolution has laid the groundwork for continued innovation and transformation, inviting us to reflect on our role in shaping a more equitable and inclusive digital landscape.